She's a runner. Oh. She's a runner. She's a track star, but she doesn't run away when things get hard. Introducing Stephanie Garcia. She was a walk-on athlete at the University of Virginia's cross-country and track team. Stephanie mainly ran in the steeplechase event, but as a connoisseur of Type 2 fun, she jumped into the event feet first and kicked off a non-traditional career that includes 10 years as a professional track athlete and status as a almost Olympian, thanks to the great tumbling over the last hurdle in 2016 Olympic trials.
Stephanie brings firsthand experience developing a personal brand, working with agents and sports marketing departments, and navigating the world of social media influencer marketing, having produced content for the likes of New Balance, Power Bar, and Always brand, among others. With her eye on transitioning into college athletic administration, Stephanie is currently a content strategist for Drive & Company, a B2B media enterprise that covers the business of college sports via the daily D1.ticker, creates leadership development content via Athletic Director U, and tracks the ongoing name, image, and likeness moves via Student-Athlete NIL. So without further ado, I will pass it over to the very talented Stephanie Garcia.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. We'll make this fun, I hope. I'm excited to talk about name, image, likeness, and athlete branding. So there's so much to talk about. The world of name, image, likeness is changing day by day. So I will probably just skim the surface, but let's try it out. I'm going to share my screen. Please forgive me as I navigate this. And we will get going. Okay, hopefully everyone can see this. NIL and the modern athlete. Let's make our way through this new era of athlete branding, social media influencer marketing. Okay, really quick, Justin and Tori did a great job of telling my story, but I will do a little quick. I was a track and field athlete at Virginia, and then I had a 10-year career as a professional track athlete. I was sponsored by New Balance, among other smaller sponsors. I competed on 2 world championship teams for the US in the steeplechase, and I almost made the 2016 Olympic team, but I had a tumble over the very last barrier and missed making it. Sob story. But that isn't the full story. You see that, you maybe go to my Instagram and you see these fierce pictures and you think you know what I'm about, but that's not the story. I was actually a walk-on to the University of Virginia. They didn't even want me. I wanted them. And through my time there, I earned my way to a full scholarship, a conference title, an NCAA runner-up finish. It took me a while to develop. I struggled in my first years as a pro, and I almost quit. In 2013, I said, I don't know if I can do this. I don't have what it takes. But I gave it one more chance, and then I, had some great success. So that's the real story that you might not see from hearing, oh, you're a pro athlete, and you might have a sense of what that story looks like. But by developing a personal brand, I'm able to control the narrative. I'm able to define who I am and really use my core values to attract the right sponsors, the right opportunities that really align with my story and what I care about. And that is the main benefit of developing a personal brand. Someone might see, oh, you're a VCU student athlete. That means you're X, Y, or Z, but you might not be. And so it's crucial, especially with name, image, likeness opportunities now, that student athletes, that everyone really take control of their story and who they are. So again, yeah, this is just a little like, I did work with a little designer. I made this, color scheme, little logo, kind of giving myself that, that lightning bolt kind of vibe. And again, you can kind of see, maybe you can't if you're, maybe my slideshow didn't work out very well with pictures, but like you can see there's an intensity, there's a fierceness, but there's also a different side of me as well. So anyway, that's me really quickly. So let's go. Let's talk about NIL, because this is all brand new. Okay, so why is this a big deal? Why is name, actually, you know what, I think I missed. Okay, yes. What are name, image, likeness rights? This is a legal concept that refers to our rights of publicity. I'm actually gonna move this because I can't see this. Okay. NIL rights covers the right to capitalize on the things that identify us, our image, This allows us to engage in endorsements and sponsorships. Examples in the sports industry, you can make an appearance in a commercial. You can go to a car dealership and say that I love going to Ford. You can sell a jersey with your name on it, not just the VCU branding, but your last name on the back of it. Having your likeness appear in a video game. I'm sure you guys have all heard of EA Sports and how they have, college football, college basketball. Your likeness can show up there. So that is why, or that is what NIL rights do and allow. So the reason, and now this isn't one, okay, why this is a big deal in college athletics. The NCAA has really stuck to this concept of amateurism. This is what makes college sports very different than professional sports. The actual definition is student athletes shall be amateurs in an intercollegiate sport, and their participation should be motivated by education and by the physical, mental, and social benefits to be derived. Student participation in intercollegiate athletics is an avocation, and student athletes should be protected from exploitation. So that is what the NCAA has really stuck to. It sets boundaries, and it says student athletes are not employees. They're not being paid to do this. There's no pay for play. And if you, before NIL kicked off in July, anyone who did promote a product or make endorsements were at risk of losing their eligibility. I'm sure everyone's heard of Johnny Manziel, quarterback who sold some autographs and got in big trouble. So before July 1st, 2021, student athletes could not make any money off of their participation in college sports. Other college students can make money off of their NIL. If I don't know how many student athletes are in this right now, but if you are a regular student, you can go out and you can endorse something. You can be a social media influencer. You could do of your own. You could sell art, music, anything. But student athletes can't do that because their status as an athlete means that they're under that amateurism bylaw. They can't even be paid if they went to, spoke at an event or were coaching a high school student. In the meantime, college athletics is a growing industry. We're talking billions of dollars. The NCAA is technically a nonprofit, but events like March Madness generate billions in revenue, from things like television rights. Coaching contracts are also on the rise. The highest paid coach right now is the new coach at USC. He earns an estimated $10 million. Alabama's head coach Nick Saban earns $9.9 million, and LSU's new coach Brian Kelly, who was at Notre Dame, now at LSU, earns $9.5 million. And those are just the top three. So not too bad if you want to be a college football coach. It's a good payday. But student athletes get none of that money. So here's how we got started. In July 2009, a former UCLA men's basketball student athlete, Ed O'Bannon, filed a lawsuit against the NCAA and the Collegiate Licensing Company, saying that they violated antitrust laws. Back in the day, the NCAA and the CLC, that's who holds the licensing rights for players' name, image, likeness, that happened even after you left college. So you graduate, you're no longer a student athlete, you still cannot control your NIL that was used while you were a student athlete. So the NCAA was allowing the CLC to use former students in an EA Sports video game. Those student athletes who were no longer student athletes could not get any of that revenue, didn't get a cut of that money. So O'Bannon filed a lawsuit, 2009. He was joined by 24 other former student athletes. And the main argument was, hey, this should not happen. After I leave college, I should be in full control of my NIL. Finally, in August 2014, California District Judge Wilkin ruled in favor of O'Bannon and found that the NCAA did violate antitrust laws. That started a chain reaction. And from there, the state started coming online. California was the first mover, with Governor Newsom signing the Fair Pay to Play Act in September 2019. So student athletes were going to be able to go profit off their NIL beginning in 2023. It started a domino effect. 40 other states have introduced bills. 28 states as of today, I think, have passed legislation. And so all of this was happening. There's some other legalese that were going on. Maybe some of you have heard of this thing called the Alston case. That was regarding schools providing funds for student athletes to have academic benefits. So they could buy their student athletes computers, they could help pay for student athletes to go study abroad, things like that. That's already in place, but they wanted to kind of increase those limits. Recently, this past summer, the Supreme Court ruled against the NCAA. This was a big deal. The Supreme Court never rules against the NCAA. And so it just kind of started again, this big momentum, this big push behind athlete rights. So the NCAA, who said, you're amateurs, you can't get paid, you're going to be exploited, they finally have folded a little bit. And kind of instead of saying, okay, we'll regulate this, they said, well, you guys regulate this, we'll just say, you're not going to get kicked out of school. So there is no uniform law right now regulating NIL. The NCAA has an interim policy that says student athletes have to comply with your state laws. And if your state doesn't have a law, well, then you can do whatever you want. That's really how it is right now. Schools and conferences can have their own policies. And the federal government is kind of working on creating something to be uniform, but that is going to be a long process, as I'm sure we all know, that how clogged up Congress can get. But beginning July 1st, student athletes were allowed to go out there and start profiting off their name, image, likeness, which they could not do because of their status as an athlete. Now, if you're an athlete, you can go and make your money. So here's a little bit of where we are today. There is a growing industry of NIL help. There are marketplaces. I'm sure some of you have heard of things called Cameo, where celebrities can go and give you a video. There are other kinds of marketplaces where you can have a profile and essentially companies can scroll through, they can put opportunities out there, you can apply to them, they can reach out to you. That's a transactional place. There are compliance platforms because most state laws do have compliance guidelines for the schools to adhere to. There are agents, there are branding experts. So this is a growing industry. Sports likes to make money. Based on most state laws, schools are required to provide financial education because now you make money, you have to pay taxes. People might be surprised by that come in April. Some states require student athletes to report all their deals and all their transactions to their school's compliance team. Most laws do not allow schools to actually create the content for the student athletes or to bring deals to student athletes. This is kind of starting to change a little bit right now. There are some schools that are trying to be able to provide those deals to students, but that really blurs the line because I think the overlying message right now regarding NIL is that people are still afraid that it's going to become a pay to play, and that, you know, a booster will say, hey, you're a great basketball player, come here, we'll pay you more than, you know, University of Virginia or Virginia Tech will pay you. And that makes it really messy. And this is something that we're going to have to keep our eye on as we move forward, because a lot of laws do allow student athletes to enter into deals with boosters, as long as it's not a recruiting inducement. And who knows what that actually behind the scenes really looks like. So not to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but that is something that we're having to keep our eye on. Student athletes are also allowed to sign with an agent just for NIL marketing deals. An agent can't say to a football player, sign with me today, and then when you go pro, you can sign with me again, and I'll get you these crazy deals, and you're going to go play for the Rams in the Super Bowl next week, or this week, 2 days. So anyway, so that's kind of what it looks like right now. Student athletes can do things like social media marketing. They can be an influencer. They can do affiliate marketing, which, you know, you click on this link and they get a cut. You use their discount code, they get a cut. They can do public appearances. They can sell autographs. So Johnny Manziel, you needed to wait a few more years and you could have done that. They could do camps, lessons, online coaching, all of those things. Now that is all free and fair game. And this is just a little graph of kind of currently, based on the first 6 months, This is data from Influencer, which is a branding market, a branding expert, and partners with a lot of schools. We're seeing most of our deals go to football players, but the second most, I'll shout it out, is track. We are seeing that women are actually doing quite well with NIL. They are very marketable. Again, you can kind of see through that, yes, men's basketball, volleyball, women's soccer, those are starting to pick up, but right now the majority of deals are going to football players. It kind of does make sense. NIL started in July. We're going right into football season. Those are the marquee sports, the marquee players. But I'm hopeful that we'll see more track and that we'll see more women out there taking advantage of this because it's available to everyone. So some notable deals right now. UConn women's basketball player Paige Buckers she was the first athlete to sign with Gatorade, so she's going to do some national campaigns for them. That's super cool. Clemson quarterback DJ Uiagalelei, I think I said that right, appeared in a national TV ad campaign for Dr. Pepper. I will make a quick little aside here. There were a lot of star football players going into the season who signed big deals. You know, UNC quarterback Sam Howell signed with Bojangles. You know, there was a lot of athletes that went out there and made some big splashes with getting fancy cars and whatnot. And then it was interesting, they actually didn't have great seasons. A lot of them were benched or injured or just did not live up to their potential. So that's kind of a question mark of, you're a student athlete, you're a student, you're on a full schedule. Do you have time to be this big time influencer? Like, we'll have to see who can manage that. But I have a lot of fondness for Clemson. I have a lot of friends there. And so to see DJ struggle after his national campaign, that was interesting. It was an interesting thing. And I will say that Dr. Pepper stopped showing that commercial. Maybe that was a plan, or maybe it wasn't, but that ad campaign only went out for a few weeks. Haley and Hannah Cavender are women's basketball players at Fresno State. They were the very first athletes to sign a deal on July 1st. They flew to New York, did a deal with Boost Mobile. They were on a billboard. And recently, this is interesting, they co-founded a streetwear clothing company, and they're going to own 25%. So this is a way for athletes can actually go and be entrepreneurs. They don't have to just say, you can use my face on your Wheaties box. They can go out there and build something. We're seeing athletes who are musicians who are able to play gigs. They couldn't do that before, things like that. The former quarterback at Oklahoma, Spencer Rattler, was the first college athlete to do a major autograph signing. He did it in Chicago in July, $150 for an autograph or a picture. Not a bad day's work. Tom Brady has signed 9 student athletes to his deal with his 2 deals with his apparel brands. And then this is just a kind of funny one. There's a Alabama football player who goes by the nickname Kool-Aid. He has a deal with Kool-Aid. That's kind of fun. So there's just ways you can be innovative. There's ways to be creative. But what I love about NIL is that it rewards hustle if you want it. If you don't want to deal with it, there are thousands of student athletes who are not participating, but they can if they want to. So that is kind of what the beauty of NIL is. Okay, so just some quick tips. I certainly wouldn't say I'm a branding expert, but let's just see what I can share. Why do you even need a personal brand? As I kind of said in the very beginning, it allows you to best tell your story. What do you want people to know about you that they won't get from just looking at your resume, your accomplishments? I would argue that everyone in the workplace, in your community, you could use a personal brand. And so having a standalone brand also allows you to control your licensing, your trademarks. And that's really important for student athletes because they are not automatically allowed to use their school marks. If I was a VCU student athlete, I could not automatically use the Rams head logo. I would have to go and ask permission to do so. A lot of student athletes can't even, based on state laws, can't even create content in their training facilities. I couldn't go and take a selfie with my Gatorade bottle, at the arena. So it varies from state to state, school to school, but that's why we're seeing a rise in this group life thing, which I didn't really touch on, but that is something that's another opportunity for student athletes to make some money. But having your own brand that defines you allows you to just be able to use that, and you don't have to worry about having to go and get permission and whatnot. And then creating a value statement and even a tagline can really help you best define what opportunities really align with what you're about. And that's so important. I will say anecdotally that as an athlete, as a pro athlete, you get a lot of offers. You get a lot of people saying, use this powder and do this CBD hemp oil or whatever. And I know that I'm not interested in promoting CBD hemp oil. It doesn't mean I won't use it, but maybe I don't want to promote it. And if I know that, and I know what my values are and my brand is, I can best navigate those decisions. Not to hate on CBD hemp oil or not, but okay, so getting started, again, go deep with the values. You can even just Google a list of values and just choose 3, 4, 5 that really speak to how you want to present yourself and what you're about. Once you have that, I think that really helps you kind of go forward. Think about the big picture with your brand. When I developed a little brand, I thought about the colors. I went on Pinterest back in the day and chose some imagery that really spoke to me, and the way, again, I wanted to be seen. There are a lot of social media platforms. You guys actually probably know more than me, but don't try and tackle them all. Choose one to really, really focus on, and maybe a couple others where you can be consistently active. But the key word there is consistent. Use your real name on your account so that people can easily find you. But if you have a nickname like Kool-Aid that you go by, you can incorporate that, but make sure that people can actually find who you really are. One interesting thing is some athletic departments are starting to put people's handles in their little bios. I don't know if anyone ever goes to those bios, unless you're a marketer or a sports information director. But when you go, I think it's kind of cool to be able to see this is their Instagram, this is their Twitter. So if BCU is not doing that, someone tell them that that's a cool idea. But yeah, my handles are Steph Steeples because I ran steeplechase. It's really funny how often people ask if Steeples is my last name for real. So that was probably maybe a mistake, but that was what I did back in the day. So use your real name if you can. Growing your audience takes time. You have to be super consistent. And I get it, like it's awkward to put content out there when you have very little followers or maybe very little likes. I like that you can hide the like count on Instagram now. Maybe you're putting TikToks out into the world and you don't even know how many views you're getting. But if you're consistent, that really helps. You don't have to maybe post at 8 p.m. Eastern every single day, but posting every day or having a schedule. That doesn't sound super sexy, but it is a way to really garner that those eyeballs. That being said, you have to capitalize on big moments. So especially if you're a student athlete and maybe you don't get a ton of time on the court or on the field, but when you do, you need to really capitalize on that. When you have eyeballs on you, when there's that viral moment, you have to be ready. But let's just say you have that viral moment, you hit that shot, and your social media you haven't been consistent on. If people show up and they see you have 4 posts and they're 2 months apart, what will they stay? Will they follow? Really? We'll see. Maybe if you really get that game-winning shot, they will. But that's why you need to be prepared for those moments. Quantity over quality. I know that might sound kind of opposite. Obviously, you want to put the best out there, but at some point you just have to start. And so maybe take your time in the very beginning to, again, create that brand, create those values. But once you have it, you kind of have to start putting it out there. Maybe it's your content will get better over time. It's embarrassing for me to scroll back even a few years on my Instagram to see what I was putting out there. But again, you can archive things later once you have a lot of content, but just get started and then really engage. You have to be present, comment back, do a Q&A on your stories, whatever it is. just be engaging, and people will then continue to engage with you. And then last tips, make sure your contact info is available. Maybe you use a link in the bio or the link tree. There's a bazillion of those things out there, but make sure people can actually get in touch with you, because that's where the marketing opportunities will come. I actually think that most student athletes do not need an agent unless you are the star Alabama quarterback. You probably can navigate this on your own. If I think the very least you could do is maybe have a lawyer friend who can kind of glance at your contracts to make sure the language is right and that you're not signing something that is forcing you to, do 100 posts for $10, that kind of thing. But make sure if you aren't going to use an agent that you do have easy accessibility so people can get in touch with you to offer you deals. And then when you do that, actually check your email, check your DMs. I am not good at this part, having the no thank you response ready. There are people that reach out and it's not right, and that's okay. You can say no, you're right. But if you don't say no, they just keep following up a lot. And so just do yourself a favor. And if you have a quick thanks, but no thanks, you can just kind of end that conversation and just move forward. And then just be prepared to get offered a lot of deals that don't fit. That's okay. That's why we did the beginning start with the values, because I think that my biggest piece of advice, what I would tell my former self is, yes, there's going to be a lot of noise, but don't get caught up in that. That's true as a student athlete. There's going to be so much noise out there. It doesn't have to all be your noise. So I think that don't sell yourself short. Don't expect that the very first deal you get is going to be $1 million. It'll probably be a product deal or something like that. And that's okay. But you're not going to live off of a product deal for the rest of your life. And so just keep those values in mind, be true to yourself, tell your story, and the right deals, the right partners will come to you. So that's what I've got for you today. This was short and sweet, I think. A lot there. I don't know what questions we have, but I will take a step back and let you great folks let me know what to do next.
Yeah, Stephanie, that was awesome. Thank you so much for presenting that. If anyone has any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. I do have one for you, so I can get this started. Justin and I were college athletes, so a little bitter that we missed this opportunity.
Yes.
But it's interesting to me. I remember each semester we would have meetings with compliance about the different restrictions that we had as student athletes, and obviously NIL was one of them. And other ones you mentioned, like recruitment inducing, sports betting, things like that we couldn't do. Do you feel like this is a foot in the door kind of for other things that were restricted on student athletes? Do you think that they'll be legalized or opened up to in the future because this happened?
I think that there will be a lot of change over the next 5 to 10 years. We're already seeing the schools partner with some sports betting operators. Colorado has partnered with PointsBet. LSU has partnered with Caesars. Sports betting is coming. And what people don't realize is that it's a very highly regulated industry. It doesn't mean that there's not sketchy things that happen, but I certainly think that is coming. Crypto is another area where we're starting to see some movement. We see pro athletes starting to take their entire salary from crypto. Some schools are starting to take donations via crypto. And so I think that is going to be something, again, down the road, 5 years, 10 years, that might be part of this. This isn't something that's controversial, but we're seeing NFTs really make waves. A lot of athletes are starting to offer NFTs. And so, yes, I think there'll be a lot of change coming down the road. I don't know if there'll ever be a school that allows an athlete to have a beer sponsorship. Certainly not at BYU, but I think that there's definitely some things down the road that will come for sure.
Yeah.
So I have my bad. I have a follow-up question to what Tori said. So this kind of goes towards your Olympian path. So as a Olympian and professional track athlete, how did you go about building your brand and reaching out to companies to try and sponsor you?
So the way that it works in track, you have a main sponsor, and it's a shoe apparel sponsor. And the way that those deals come together, that is facilitated by an agent most of the time. I'd say 9.9 times out of 10, you have an agent that gets you that deal. And to get to that level, you have to, the way it's working right now is you have to perform. And so I will say that I got lucky. I had a great 5th year. I made a world championship team that year. And so I had some buzz around me and was able to get an agent and then able to get a sponsor. And so it is that like senior year of college, maybe first year out, you have to have that star performance or show that potential to kind of get that big sponsor. Other than that, it is kind of, as I was saying, you know, once you're putting yourself out there on social media, you're growing your following, the deals kind of come to you. And again, a lot of them are not ones that you're going to take, but once you kind of start getting that momentum of folks sliding into your DMs, I know that sounds weird, but it's true, or, you know, sending you an email and it's, again, maybe 9 of them are not great. And one of them, you're like, oh, I actually do use that drink powder. Let's start a relationship and let's see what they'll offer me. I will say it is from my perspective, and I'm not a star football player or anything like that, but it was challenging for me to figure out what to charge. That kind of market rate, market value to me is not something I feel like I'm an expert in. There are companies that say, I will pay you a dollar per follower, some that give you different rates. And so that is something where I would definitely want to consult with someone else who has better expertise on that than I do, because I've had some deals that were very different in payment structures, and I wasn't really able to expertly say, well, wait a minute, I'm actually owed this or that based on my follower count or whatever. But yeah, I don't know if that totally answers your question, but yes, a lot of the deals kind of came in organically. I didn't reach out to a lot of people, but I think that you can, especially now with NIL being a thing. As a student athlete, I think that you can go out there and pitch yourself to a brand. One thing that we talk about with NIL is that it really can benefit the hometown heroes. Everyone is a hero in their hometown if you're a student athlete. If you know, even if you came from a big town, it's still cool. It's still rare to go and compete at the NCAA level. And so going back to your hometown, going back to your favorite coffee shop or your car dealership or whatnot, and making those relationships and saying, hey, I went to this high school and I was the star track athlete or whatever, and now I'm competing at VCU. There is opportunities there. So I definitely encourage student athletes, for sure, athletes at any level, go out and put yourself out there once you have this branding and this who you are values in place.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Stephanie, we got a question in the chat that's kind of like a 2-prong question. Being the ones who will make the decisions behind casting for spokespeople for brands, what would you say are the biggest advantages to working with student athletes? And do you think former NCAA athletes reprimanded for accepting compensation, such as Reggie Bush or Chris Webber, should receive their awards back?
Well, the second question is, I mean, personally, yes, I do think they should receive the awards back, but I know right now, like with Reggie Bush, they're saying, sorry, guy, that was the rule at the time, you violated it, the end. It's tricky. I think they should get it back, of course, because now we acknowledge that these things have changed. The first question, the advantage to working with student athletes. So student athletes are, they open up the door to a very different audience than a pro athlete or, you know, an older influencer, older as in like 25. I mean, I'm not talking about 40-year-olds, which they're great too. Everyone comes with their own audience is what I'm trying to say. And student athletes are in a unique position because they can influence their peers. So you can tap into that college student generation. But they also have a fan base. There are fans of every VCU sport that come from all walks of life. They have reach across the globe. Most schools have, you know, international alum. And it gives you a wide range of lifestyles, of ages. And so because of that affinity to the school brand. And so I definitely think that depending on what the product is, depending on what the campaign is, using a student athlete is kind of a no-brainer to me. They're just great ambassadors for their generation, but also to be able to tap into just a whole different set of consumers.
Another question I do have for you, Stephanie, actually, I feel like a lot of the things that you said could also apply to just influencers in other industries. And I guess a question would be how would you, I guess, navigate like negative comments or criticisms on your social channels? Obviously, when you have some limelight on you, people want to voice their opinion in a negative way sometimes. So how do you navigate that?
Yeah, I feel, I really feel for the athletes, especially the ones in the marquee sports that, you miss that shot and you get hate on Twitter and you're a 19-year-old kid. I think that having a thick skin, of course, if you are putting yourself out there, you have to be prepared that people are not going to like you or what you do or what you say. That being said, I think you have to protect your mental health at times. If you need to have a friend kind of, if you had a big post or a big performance, whether it was good or bad performance, if you need to kind of hand off your phone to someone and say, please just like go through these and make sure I don't have these notifications, I say do it, do not try and engage with the trolls unless that's your brand and you're like that kind of controversial person. I think you just have to be smart, have people in your corner to either look at that stuff for you or, take your phone away. I think that the mute button is great. I think the block button works in certain circumstances. But that's again, part of the risk. And that's why we're not seeing every single athlete out there engaging in NIL or becoming an influencer. Some of them don't want to, and that is totally fine. So it is, once you put yourself out there and become more of a public figure, that's gonna happen. So yeah. I do love all these comments about people reminiscing about about their sports teams. I think that just sports brings people, kind of going back to that other question about why student athletes, sports is just such a unique thing. It brings people together in a way, just like music does, just like art does. And so tapping into that affinity is just such a great marketing tool. And that's why we're seeing this industry make billions of dollars. And so it's time for the student athletes to, capitalize on that. I think other things we're going to be seeing on the horizon is definitely there is this kind of murmur about unionization for student athletes. Student athletes are starting to kind of maybe start forming groups to kind of try and push. I think that's going to be interesting because if you become an employee and the school is your employer, that totally changes things. That's going to take away scholarships and it's going to give you a salary. That's going to give you different tax implications. It's just going to change the relationship. And so I'm a little old school in a way where I value the student athlete angle. That's what I was. I just think it will be really interesting to follow that angle about if they're going to become employees, if they're going to unionize. That's a big picture down the road.
We have another question for you from the chat from Andrew. He said it's a technical question. Do you employ any tools for monitoring and measuring social media across the channels and topics?
So I personally use the metrics and the tools that are in each platform. I find that that's kind of more effective. It's clunkier. It's not smooth, that it gives you everything. That's a great question. And I actually should follow up and find out what the real influencers are using these days to track that stuff. I do think that, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, they give you pretty good metrics. I'm not a TikToker, so I can't speak to that intelligently, but using the in-app tools has worked for me so far. Oh, someone just put in Hootsuite. So I was thinking of that one. I wasn't sure how many platforms it goes across. But yeah, so thank you to Michael. I hope that's how you say your name, for suggesting that one.
And then I have another question for you too, Stephanie. So do you think that now that players can profit off of NIL, that companies will start trying to target and partner with college athletes opposed to professional athletes because they might be able to get them cheaper and they'll be more inclined to take the deal opposed to trying to get a deal or sponsorship with like LeBron James or something of that sort?
I think yes and no. I think there certainly will be some brands that do say, okay, we can get an interesting range of an audience through using a student athlete. But that being said, so there is a company I work with that advises brands on NIL deals. And what we've actually been surprised to see, especially those first few months, was that a lot of the big brands, I'm talking about like Coke, they were very hesitant and they did not want to engage right away. I think the big name brands are conservative and they don't want to be first movers necessarily. They want to wait and see how this plays out. There is a risk to partnering with an 18-year-old. You need to make sure that if they're a brand ambassador for you, if you're paying them, the big bucks to go out there, do appearances, that they can handle it. I think they can for the most part, but from the brand perspective, I think that in the beginning, there has been a little bit of a hesitation and a wait and see kind of vibe to make sure that the student athletes can manage it appropriately and be the right kind of ambassador. It is interesting. I mean, the Gatorade deal with the UConn women's basketball player, that just happened. So Gatorade has waited until, over 6 months to make a deal. The Dr. Pepper was the only big drink brand that partnered with a football player. And again, it was for one TV commercial and then they pulled it. And so maybe they didn't pull it. Maybe they didn't pull it because he wasn't performing, but it was definitely coincidental. So I think that it'll maybe start picking up over the next few years as NIL becomes more of a regular thing. And it'll be interesting. I mean, the audience for LeBron James is very different for the audience for, even the top men's basketball player. So we'll see.
And excuse me, sorry. This is kind of like a follow-up to that. So while bigger companies are hesitant, do you think that bigger companies will then start to go towards more athletes who they can see can handle it? So like you said, Paige Buckner for UConn, she got the Gatorade contract, but she also has a contract with StockX. Well, where like StockX isn't like Gatorade, but that's still pretty well-known company. And so do you think that because she's handled that contract, that kind of gave Gatorade the confidence they needed in her and said, oh, look, she can handle that and maybe we'll get her?
I certainly think that helps for sure. I will say one other side note with NIL, and again, they wanted to make sure that this was not going to be seen as pay for play. So a company, once they enter a deal, they can't have a clause in there that says, if you get benched, we pull this deal, or if you get injured, we pull this deal. So I kind of mentioned this in the beginning, there were a lot of star football players who had big buzz going into the season, and they got some deals, and then they got benched, they got injured, they didn't get to play. It's interesting, they had to keep, those companies that started those deals with them had to keep the deals. So that's a risk, and that's a risk with any athlete for sure, but college athletes are a little more unknown. There's a little bit less control than pro athletes over their careers. A college athlete could be at a UConn and then their coach leaves, and then are they stuck with a bad coach or something like that. Right. So there's a lot out of a student athlete's control. And in that sense, I think that there's a little more hesitation to entering deals because of those kinds of things. I hope I'm confident that Paige Buckers is going to have an amazing career and go on to the WNBA, but something could happen and Gatorade would still have to provide her with what they had promised. So, you know, it's a nuance. Any other fun questions, guys, as we wrap this up?
I don't see any other questions coming in. So Stephanie, thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate your thoughtfulness and all the time you put into this. So thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you guys. Thanks for being here. Yeah, feel free to email or DM with any other questions. This was really fun.